On Tuesday, the Texas Senate passed a bill that bans many treatment options for transgender youth. The bill passed along party lines. It would restrict puberty-blocking medication, hormone therapy, or surgeries for the purpose of transitioning a child's biological sex. And it would prevent state health insurance plans from covering those services. Doctors who provide those options could lose their state medical license if the bill becomes law. The vote came after a long debate that sometimes became heated, and an unusual move raised tension in the chamber even higher. Digital anchor Will DuPree joins us now. You followed the debate. What made this vote so unusual?
Senators had approved this amendment that would allow transgender children to continue with their care even if the ban became law. On the day that we thought that the final vote would happen, a rare move happened with Republican Senator Donna Campbell, who is the bill's author. She decided to withdraw this amendment and wanted to change the language a bit. That led to frustration among the Senate Democrats who expressed that on the Senate floor. Let's take a listen at some of that exchange that happened during the debate.
What is the reason to track the amendment that you had first adopted and everybody agreed to without objection? Nobody objected to you at the amendment that you and I discussed. What is the policy decision to remove the amendment today?
The actual amendment that I put on 14, or are you talking about the date from December?
The amendment that would allow the children who are currently under the care of a doctor to continue to finish their care.
The amendment was not discussed in committee, and there were so many questions that have been brought up since the amendment was put on that, out of respect for the body, I'm going to just take it down, ask that it be taken down.
Democrats ultimately lost that battle, Josh, and the bill went on to pass fully in the Senate without that grandfather clause included for those current patients receiving that kind of gender-affirming care. Now, Democratic Senator Jose Menendez spoke passionately for about 15 minutes against that bill.
I want you to know that I believe it undermines the sanctity of the relationship between a parent and a child, the doctor and their patient, and any person's God-given right to their pursuit of happiness. Thank you for indulging me, and thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me to speak against this bill, which I know that your goals you have the right goals, but this bill does the wrong thing.
Senator Campbell made her case for the legislation, saying she believed it will protect children.
In this body, many times we vote all together because it's the right thing to do. Children who are on puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones need more counseling and love. They don't need blades and drugs.
Well, we heard Senator Menendez say there was no opposition to the amendment to allow children already receiving treatment to continue that treatment. Do we know what changed?
That is a big question. Senator Campbell there just mentioned in her remarks that there were lots of questions and concerns raised after that amendment passed, again without opposition during the Senate. She did not specify, though, who was raising those questions specifically. Now, Senator Sarah Eckhart from Austin, a Democrat here, spoke on the floor, and she noted that a number of nationwide political organizations are advocating for this identical kind of legislation all across the country.
And that's the case for another issue that came up in the Senate this week. A couple of bills came up to tighten restrictions on drag performances. You also followed that debate. What happened there? Yeah,
the Senate ultimately approved two different drag-related restriction bills. Senate Bill 12 would criminalize any kind of performance if it's overtly sexual and is possibly seen by a child. The bill also defines a sexually oriented performance as a male performer exhibiting as a female or a female performer exhibiting as a male who appeals to the prurient interest in sex. The legislation includes penalties for both performers and businesses. Now, that debate led to a very heated exchange between Democrat Roland Gutierrez and the bill's author, Senator Brian Hughes, a Republican. Gutierrez does represent Uvalde in his district, and he took issue with Hughes, saying that this bill would protect children.
If it appeals to the prurient interest and meets any of those above prongs, it's captured by the bill. Because this is about protecting children. What should be done in the presence of children?
Man, I'm telling you, I've been all about this session about protecting children, my friend, and we haven't done a whole lot of protecting the children when it comes to guns and ammunition.
That exchange right there and the reaction from the gallery led to a pause in the debate by Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who reminded the gallery to avoid any outbursts or he'd have law enforcement clear out everyone. Shortly after that exchange, senators voted to approve that bill.
Well, this wasn't the only bill Senator Hughes pushed through regarding drag performers. He's also targeting drag events at public libraries.
Yeah, he carried through this bill that would cut off any kind of state funding going to a municipal library that hosts a drag queen story time where performers read books to kids.
Both of these bills go to the House. What is the outlook there?
Yeah, that's the big question, too. Senate Bill 12 was one of the Lieutenant Governor's big priorities this session. However, Speaker Dade Phelan, that is not on his priority list at this time. Of course, we have to note that Republicans do control the majority in the House, so if these bills come up for a vote, they will most likely pass. However, we're getting close to the end of the session, so is there enough time to tackle those along with some of those other big priority items?
And while we've seen a lot of anti-LGBTQ legislation, House members just advanced a bill to expand gay rights. The House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee approved a bill to repeal the Texas law that makes homosexual conduct a crime, and that clears the way for a vote in the full House.
Right.
Thank you, Will. Earlier, you heard Senator Gutierrez talk about his work on gun safety legislation. On Tuesday, he held a Capitol News conference with families of children killed in the mass shootings at Robb Elementary and Santa Fe High School. Gutierrez has filed nearly 24 bills after 19 children and 2 teachers were killed with an assault-style rifle in Uvalde. One proposal would raise the age to buy a gun to 21, but Gutierrez says those bills are stuck in the Senate. He's now asking supporters to call their state reps to rally support as time runs out.
People need to wake up on this issue, and they need to demand action, because more children will die as long as Greg Abbott, Dan Patrick, and others like them do nothing.
3 days before I buried my daughter, I addressed Congress to call for sensible gun laws. In closing, I said, somewhere out there, there's a mom listening to our testimony, thinking I can't even imagine their pain, not knowing our reality will one day be hers unless we act now.
Top Republicans in the House and Senate are backing bills to add armed law enforcement at every school, require mental health training for teachers, and fund security improvements on campuses. Those bills have wide bipartisan support. A big push is underway at the Capitol for more transparent medical billing. How one lawmaker is laying out a plan to help patients get easy to understand information before they pay a medical bill.